Do you love this podcast? Do you love the information that we give you with a little sense of humor, some nuggets, some fun? Guess what? It happens every day, 24 hours a day inside Endurance Nation. Endurance Nation has been helping athletes just like you achieve their age group goals, whether it's finishing their first marathon or Boston qualifying, finishing their first triathlon or doing an Ironman at the World Championships, or doing ultra runs, gravel races, etc. Many cases during the summer months, we have athletes racing all over the country, in fact, the globe, at events of all different varying shapes and sizes. We can do that because the framework for how we train, how we build athletes, educate them, and support them with training plans and digital access to coaching and their peers is unparalleled. No one else does it like Endurance Nation does it. When you become a member of the team, you get access to not only the great coaching support, our training plans, and our resources, but to peers, people just like you who love the adventure, love challenging themselves, and are on this growth trajectory of personal excellence. Whether you're 25 years old and getting started or 65-year-old and sharpening the saw, we are here to help you out. You can learn more and apply to join the team at endurancenation.us/join. That's www.endurancenation.us/join. I look forward to seeing your application.
You're like,
what? Am I too close to you?
I got scaled. Yeah, I was a big head.
Oh, look out. Nobody wants that. Well, hey, look, everyone, we're live. You're in for the bloopers. We're starting with the bloopers. We're trying to get the sizes of our head to match across the United States. It's not working so far. Who knew? We could talk, but we're not appropriately sized. This is me, super big, Coach Patrick on the East Coast, even though I appear to be smaller than properly sized Matt on the left coast. Welcome to another episode of Dude Guy, year-end episode for 2023. We jotted down some topics to talk about this week. It's been a while since we've been here, but I promise that I've had enough caffeine and calories to make it interesting. Matt obviously is probably showing a little more restraint, as is his norm. That's okay. We're going to have a good time today. Matt, welcome to the end of your pod. Are you excited?
It's great to be at the end of the year.
Yes. I can't believe it. There were times where I think we both felt like we were not going to make it to the end of the year. Like it was a long year. I don't know. You traveled halfway around the globe.
I did. I had an awesome first part of my year, and I had I had lots of significant events in the second part of the year. So the second part of the year felt like a whole year in itself.
Indeed. So. Time is funny like that. It's like when that moment in your race, right? When whatever you're doing, whatever you listener does for your events, that just feels like forever. Like this race is never going to end as like time slows down or during your intervals or during a test, doing a functional test. And you're just like, why is the clock moving so slowly? Like that's all cool when it happens athletically, but when it happens in some other part of your life, it's miserable. You're like, this is happening to me at work, right? Or this is happening to me at home or somewhere else where you're just like, hurry up, time. Like, let's go. Let's plow through this stuff, right? When you hit the bad stuff, I'm like, that's the part of the movie where, like, no joke, I watch movies when I work out. It's like my little trick to like get myself to do training. But even in like the bad scenes, like I was trying to watch some zombie movie the other day, and I was like trying to like fast forward from the treadmill past the part where the zombie was eating the other zombie's face, because I'm like, fast forward through the bad part. Just get to the running around and adventure part, not the part where they're biting faces. So we're going to call that the biting face moment of time. So when you're in a race and you're getting bitten in the face, or maybe not. Okay, fine. And for me, it kind of feels that way. I don't know. So, all right, we got a couple topics to talk about today. I wrote them down here upside down. So we're doing a little reflection today and talk a little bit about it. We're doing reflection right now with our team over at Endurance Nation, where we're talking about reflection on your year, trying to capture how the year went. So like Matt said, that amount of time that he spent summarizing his year, which is like appropriate for public consumption, which is like good part of my year, bad part of my year. Enough said. Like people are like, okay, get it. Some ups, some downs, peace. Like you want to break it out of the box, we can talk about it. Want to keep it in the box? Makes sense. When you're talking about your own races, when you're talking about your own year, the last thing you want to do is that, which is, I had a good year. I got a couple t-shirts. I remember I got a medal, and I think I was okay in my age group. I can't quite remember, but let's go on to the next year. When you treat your year in that same manner, when you bring that sort of cursory, what you would tell your neighbor when they saw that you came back from your race, about your race, evaluation of your year, you're missing out on like oodles and oodles of personal growth and sort of internal knowledge that can set you free, which is super, super important. Matt encouraged me to write an article about the 4 keys of reviewing your year through your races, which I did. You can find that over at endurancenation.us/blog. But Matt, you are fantastic at taking notes and sort of generating some knowledge that comes out of that space. Like when you think back across a year, when you are evaluating a year for you, like what are the top like 2 or 3 things that you focus on in terms of saying, this is how I'm going to get down to the root of what my year was about, instead of just what pictures I downloaded from the race site and kind of scratched out the logo a bit so it looks like I paid for them.
Yeah. So when we were talking about evaluating the season, I mean, typically I've done in the past of like, I finished X in my age group, or I finished, I PR'd or I didn't PR and stuff like that. And so I feel like I'm at a time in my athletic career where, PRing is going to be a little bit more challenging for me because, I always remember my 20 or 30-year-old self, and that, my 50-year-old self is going to be a little bit challenged to continue to PR. So and then trying to define my athletic achievement is not just like, either was good or bad based on how I, fell out in my age group and stuff like that. So when we were talking about how to review the year and looking at it through the lens of the 4 keys, the one that struck me the most was like, nothing matters until the line. And I was trying to frame that of the year of like, when did my year become a grind, or like, when did it become, working out became more challenging for me? Like, when did that peak or that happen for me? And did that happen at the right time for me relative to when I was trying to, did that happen when I wanted it to? So
right.
That was, I know you shared during the podcast that, you had you reached that grind a lot earlier in the season and then had to rally a little bit. And so, I think I was pretty happy on where mine ended up. But it took, cause I had a big stage race that I did in July, and I was really happy with my performance during that race. So like, I think I timed that, my peak in of mental and physical readiness for that race just right. But then I did not manage the post race part very well. The part from like July through August when I was, when I came back from that race, and then I was like, let's keep riding this wave. I can be awesome all summer. I can hold this peak for another 4 weeks or whatever. And that was just super demanding on my body. So, and then also caused me to crash a little bit harder come September and stuff like that, because I was just trying to be awesome for too long. What about you? So, or I can talk more about that, or what about your story?
I think it's a great point. So like, I think success is a bunch of different things. And what I'm really encouraging the listeners to do, is follow your example, is to say, take it away from the race for a moment and say, because the race is really, maybe you have 3 a year, 4 a year, if you don't count those like 5Ks that you run around your neighborhood for fun. If you just focus on those 4 moments, that's like saying, hey, there's like, 3 times when I went out on a date with my significant other that were really important this year. Like the rest of the time we spent together didn't mean jack. But when we think about it from a training perspective, it's all the other work that sets up that race performance. And the natural inclination is to go back to those peak memories, right? We're just like emotional milestones in our year, and not really take a good hard look at what happens. And this is why you see athletes who show up again and again, or like, I just can't taper. I'm like, oh, really interesting. Like, so how long have you been like running marathons? And they're like, 15 years. I'm like, so 15 years in, still no taper plan. Like, yeah, I just can't get it right. And that's not because the taper is incredibly elusive. It's because people are just not doing a really good job of paying attention to their body and what they're putting into their body and what they're getting out. Right? People they don't want to know. They don't want to know. They don't want to know what goes inside the sausage. Like, I'm just going to eat my kielbasa. Like, I'm super happy over here. Life is great. Put some onions on that bad boy, toast it up. But I do not want to know what goes inside of it. And the more that you're willing to spend time being aware and sort of pulling apart a little bit of those layers, we can actually start to unlock performance for people that's not related to supplements or like some sort of crazy workout or spending millions of dollars on equipment. It's all about saying, hey, when I do X, what do I get out of X? And the reason why that's super important is really what you got back to in the beginning of what you mentioned, which is, hey, as you proceed through time, as we age, as we change, like our body changes, and everything really changes along with it. So like our expectations of what we can do is really hard. So what you think you could do and what you're able to do early is very different than what you can do later, right? And so it's a constant game. The reason why the self-knowledge is so important is because it's a constant game, but we're always working towards that place of saying, is this it? And it's like, it's kind of close, but maybe not it. It's not what you did last year, But if you're not aware of it and you don't know what you did last year, then you can't possibly make adjustments now. So you're effectively flying your plane blind. But even worse, you're flying your plane blind for like the 15th year in a row because you didn't learn from the last couple of times that you had to crash land that plane and you barely made it out alive, or maybe you didn't make it out alive because of like how bad the season was. And as a result, you're not learning. You're just stumbling through this history of athletic, performances. And I think one of the things that separates athletes who continue to be successful and who continue to excel, whether it's in one domain or multiple domains, which we'll be talking about later, it's really a mindset around how do I get better at doing what I'm doing, not how do other people see me as better out there on the race course, which I think is really, really critical. So I'm all about that self-learning, which is why I think the recap piece and taking a look at some of those moments are important. So we talked about that early season training, like how's the early inputs going and how are you handling that work? In my case, I did not handle it well, and we had to do damage control. Good news, I was able to figure that out and do damage control, but that doesn't always work. In your case, you had the benefit of a good early season and good timing, which like really puts you ahead of 95% of athletes out there because most people don't even get that part right, myself included. But it was the other side, right? Which was like, well, what are reasonable expectations to have for myself going forward? So let's think about like, what are sort of 3 key questions that people can ask themselves about their year? They can take this down because obviously everyone takes notes during the DudeGuy podcast. What are 3 key questions that they could ask themselves that we could kind of dive into, instead of say like, hey, like let's, if you follow these 3 questions, be able to crush it. All right, let's hear it after our brief pause. The 3 questions.
So the 3 questions. So I would relate the 3 questions to the 4 keys because we wrote the article on those things. So like the first one is, race day is all about execution and not fitness. And so like, if I look at my season as the race, then, how did I make decisions across my season that were good or bad for me, right? Like where did I make some, good decisions about my season and where did I make some bad decisions about my season, and how those things, had, maybe it seemed like a good decision at the time. Tactically, it seemed like a good decision, but strategically that was a bad decision.
Oh, I love that. Like a column that has like decisions and like a column for the good ones and the column for the bad ones. Like to your point,
yeah,
looked good.
Yeah, I think
didn't stick the landing.
Yeah. So I think that, so for me, like, if I look across the year about where I made some decisions, like I think I biased more towards rest. I'm like, I figured I can do work. Like I've proven that over time. And like, but trying to figure out when to rest and was always been my Achilles heel. And I think I did a pretty good job of that at the beginning of the year. Not so great at the end of the year, So yeah, the first question would be like, relative to if you view the whole year as a race, how did I make decisions across my year, both good and bad, that, set up my year as a whole, right? And that we can learn from them of like, would not make that decision again, right? Would not go epic 4 weekends in a row because I felt awesome because the 5th weekend was like, I was tanked or whatever. And it took me 3 weeks to recover or whatever the thing was. And then, so the other part would be like, nothing matters until the line. So that like, did your, the training grind, happen for you at the right place, right? Like was training always fun? It was unicorns and rainbows across the year. Well, then good for you. But did, training become a grind at some point and like it get tough? And then, how did you handle that part of it? And like, so did you peak your work at the right time? And did you get the result that you were looking for? Like, oh no, I peaked my work and then I got injured. And then I had this hamstring thing that I just couldn't get rid of for 3 or 4 months or whatever the story would be. And then I think the last question was like, did you have a one thing that you started the year with? And then did you keep that one thing across the year? Did your one thing change? Did you need multiple things across your year, like to keep you motivated? Did you find that your first thing was, good enough, but you found your first thing wasn't good enough. You needed to find another thing to motivate you or something like that. So I'd say decisions, and then how you put your, when you hit the line for your year and then your one thing for the year, how did that work out for you and stuff like that? That would be my 3 questions. What about you? Over to you.
I love No, I'm rolling with yours. So I think yes to the first part, like the decisions, good, bad column, simply because as a reminder, like no matter what happens to your year, you get to make decisions, right? And so that's the most important variable to pay attention to, because you're making the call. And so you have to go back and say what was the right call in that moment? Like, was it the right call? We say hindsight's 2020. Now this is your chance. You can look back and be like, that was not actually a good idea. And the ability to do that, what most of us do is just like a assembly line. We make decisions in the moment, like, really important. I got to go. Do I go left or do I go right? I go right. And then if you just never pay attention to the fact that every time you guess right, you're wrong, then you're never going to opt left. Like you should just know, right? You're not taking the opportunity to learn from your decisions. And becoming a better decision maker is absolutely 100% correlated to becoming a better endurance athlete. And so I'm a huge fan of that one. And I love the idea of just the decision columns, and go back and take a look at it. Which ones would you stand by, and which ones would you say next year I don't want to do that, right? And if you really want to be dorky, you can have a list of like when X happens, do this, don't do that, right? Like, or come up with a thing like we never always go right. That's always wrong, right? Or some version of that. On the training side, I agree. Like, so there's also a correlation, not just with great decision makers, but with athletes who can put in good, solid, consistent early season training, whether it's what we do in the out season, which is more time bound, intensity focused, and quality that's manageable with an age group schedule, or if you're in the volume camp or wherever you fit, that consistency really matters, and the length of the consistency matters. So some people can do like 6 or 8 weeks. They get kind of like 2 months, and then they blow up and they get sick or work or whatever, and they come back and they put a few more weeks together. And so you see this variability in the fitness line because life just happens. The athletes who can figure out what is the sustainable schedule that they can manage for the longest possible period of time early in the season always do better, right? They don't have the hiccups, so they're not like emotionally or mentally beating themselves up over just not hitting their year because they're still on track. Like they're not excited about like, oh, I'm going to run 16 miles a week, but I really want to run 30 miles a week. It's like, well, when you run 30 miles a week, you break, right? Or when you try and run 30 miles a week, it takes away from your kids' practice. When you run 30 miles a week, you have to do most of it outside, which is not great. And so you start figuring out these things that are consequences of those earlier decisions you made. So you start coming up with a schedule that's more and more sustainable for you across the season. And even if it's not your most epic schedule, as I said, the value of that consistent training over time is massive later in the year. It gives you the base to have a great race, but it also gives you the base to have possibly, if you manage it correctly, a good second half of your season because you've done some good work. So I think really understanding what that looks like. And when we look at it, if I use my little window here, those of you watching on YouTube, it's like a straight line over the first part of that season. It could be 3 months, it could be 5 months, for some cases, if you're racing the it might be 6 or 7 months before we have like a real drop where we're tapering or getting ready for a race, etc. And the rest of your year becomes a little more variable, but that first part, that first ramp that you're building is just so important. And it's not about the pitch of the ramp or the length of the ramp or the speed that you're on the ramp that's going to shoot you off into like whatever your plan is, because that's all we think about. It's like, I'm just going to shoot off this thing. We're not really taking the time to step back and look at that ramp and be like, is that rideable? Like, is it going to hold me up? Can I really do that thing? I don't know. I mean, the smartest athletes, the best ones, they know to take time. Look at that ramp, make sure it works. So do yourself a favor, go back, take a look at that ramp, make sure that you're really good there. In terms of the one thing, I love this, not because about picking a better one thing. In my mind, it's more about what was the one thing that you ended up with, right? So, because we all have aspirations. I'm going to go do this thing, right? I'm going to lose 5 pounds, or maybe I'm going to go get a new job, or I'm going to start learning a language, or whatever. We all have aspirations, right? And then we have what we ended up at and what we actually did. And I think in the case of the one thing, which is that sort of like go-to, like super double top secret weapon that you pull out that keeps you going, we find out about that over the course of the year because we set out with these goals and we run into all these challenges, life, our own limitations, etc. And then we end up with something that really helps us get it done. What was that thing? Because that's a special thing, because it wasn't the first thing that came to you. It's what you got to after months of work. And at months of work, when you kind of hit that space and you were like, well, how do I sort of like resurrect myself at this point? Or how do I stay on the rails, even though I'm about to come off these rails? That thing is a really special thing. Like that thing that you find at the end of that journey, that's what you want to see. That's the thing. So we all remember what we set out, because all your friends are like, remember when you said you were gonna like do this thing? Because like everyone remembers that because it's the bravado, it's the movie moment, etc. But we don't know what the hero's thinking when she's hanging off the side of a building and like sands in the face, and the busload of orphans has gone off, and like she's only got seconds to save them with her rail gun or whatever. I don't know how you save people with a gun, but they always do it in the movies. That is like the movie moment that we think of, but in reality, we have no idea what's going through the hero's mind at that moment. We can see them looking and whatever, but for us, that is the magic. And so when people can sort of step away for a second and say, well, this is the thing that really got me there, that's also really powerful, because you're not going to need it all of next year except for like 2 times. And you really want to know what you're reaching for, because in those moments, you don't have a lot of time. And you probably put yourself in a tough spot in a race, because that's part of endurance racing. And so you really want to know what part of the tool belt you're going to, right? Like Batman doesn't get to go through 57 things in the middle of the movie. He can only reach for one. He always reaches for the one thing. You want to be able to reach for that one thing in your bat belt, your tool belt, that is the right thing. And now you know. Now you have the benefit of being able to look back over your year and be like, this was the thing that really did it for me. This is where I found that extra gear, right? This is where I stood back up and said, I can do this. Like, what was that thing? You know, for me, both, I'll go back to Leadville and Steamboat. On the Leadville side, it was that timesheet that we had, that we mapped out, and I put on my stupid stem, and I didn't know until I saw it. And then I saw it and said I could still do this, and I was back in it. That was all that I needed. It was that thing that I printed out because I was like, I'm just going to have this on my bar so I stay on track. I wasn't like, this is a life-saving device that's going to help me do my race. But if I hadn't done it, I wouldn't have had the ability to do the math to understand, right? That's one, right? So that's after years of not checking my watch in races, or really not wanting to look at it, and I want to know the truth, and being burned by it. So putting that there was helpful. In Steamboat, it was actually chasing that pro gravel rider that you rode with. What's her name again?
Oh, King is, yeah.
Yeah, is King. That's right.
Yeah, is King.
Exactly. So we rode together up the last bit of that really beefy climb with like 3 or 4 other guys, and one of them was cracking or whatever. And she was super happy and super cheerful, but she was also all business. And we got to near the top of that climb. She was not slowing down. She's like, I'm just going to sit on this number. And people started fading away. And I was like, oh, I kind of have a choice here. I can fade away with these other people who we became friendly with, and maybe they'll come around, or I can ride to his. And I knew where I was on the course because we'd done the recon, and it was only just the last little bit on the top of that dirt climb for you turned the corner, and then he started the descent. And I was like, oh, I'm just going to bridge to her for like 25 seconds. But that changed the whole race for me, because then it was just her and I, and we were trying to play a game and like keeping away from the other people, but we were catching other people. And it turned it into like a proactive experience instead of just not suffering, And so for me, it was that decision to say, oh, this is what a bike racer would do, right? As I'm sort of learning the ropes of what bike racing is and so on. I had like a role model. I was like, okay, the writing is very clear to me. Like, we can have friends, but I will also see them at the end. And this is how we race. And so those 2 moments were really important for me to kind of capture and say, oh, going forward, how do I learn from these pieces? I've got those nuggets. The stuff I said at the beginning of the year, totally meaningless, but it sure got me motivated when I started. But now, useless, like not a resource at all. Would not give them to anybody else. So those are our takeaways for the recap stuff for everybody. I like that. That was a good one. I'm a fan of that. But I do want to talk about something a little different. I'm going to shift gears here for a second for everybody. Second part of this episode is talking about epic stuff. One of the trends that we've noticed here inside the team over the last 3 to 4 years, heading into the pandemic driven and coming out, is that our athletes have actually turned into some really interesting people. Back in the day, everybody just did like an Ironman. It's like, hey, I'm going to do an Ironman, and maybe I'll do 2 Ironman races. Maybe I'll even do like a half Ironman before a real Ironman. And so it was a season that was just full of like triathlon from, November or December all the way through November or December. And then maybe they take a week off or something, then go back and be like triathlon. I need to start swimming. It's December, etc. And our athletes have now shifted to where they're doing a variety of different events as our sort of demographic has aged and changed. And I actually think it's for the better. Like, I'm really excited that our athletes are doing different stuff. I know for you and I both, from a coaching / planning perspective, it doesn't make our job any easier. But where do you sit on the sliding scale of single sport, just do that one thing and get like really, really good at that one thing, or the variety side? Where do you fall on that?
So I guess I've lived through both of it. Like, especially like last year, like I was going to become a really good mountain biker. So I went all in on becoming a mountain biker and I missed running. So I've had to rebuild my run to some degree, having been a historically good runner. So I kind of experienced that of like, I wanted to become a really good at one specific thing. So I needed to put a lot of time into it. But then I noticed that like, okay, I did that, check the box kind of thing. And now I want to go back to being a little bit more well-rounded. And now the next challenge is, putting the run back together. And I think we see that with, a lot of our athletes that have done, they've checked the box of like, I've done Ironman, I've done this marathon, I've done half marathon. Now I want to try an ultra, but they still want to do they still want to do an Ironman in the same year. So, we've put together plans where guys are going to run Boston in the spring. They'll come back and do a full Ironman like in late summer. And then maybe sometime in the fall, they'll do a big trail run. And then they'll want to do that cycle again, right? And come the next year. So we have to, it's an interesting problem to solve from a coaching perspective, because you want to make sure they're still doing enough homework in the other disciplines that their future self is going to be happy with them. I was talking to one athlete that last year was, really big into going to do a big bike event. We're going to do this bike camp. And then a couple of weeks after that, we're going to go on a big hike. It's going to be a multi-day thing. And then at the end of that, I want to come back and I want to do, a trail marathon. But I'm going to run I still want to go snowshoe in the winter, or whatever the story was going to be. So we have to, knowing that those are the things that the athlete enjoys doing, we got to keep those things in the training schedule so that next year when they decide that, hey, I want to go all in on the bike stuff, we're not just completely reinventing the bike. So I think you've put together some, good plans where we have like a balanced marathon plan where we use some biking to get the aerobic time, but you're still doing enough long runs and tempo runs that you're competent in running a marathon. You're prepared for the marathon, but you're still on the bike so that we're not just completely shutting off the bike. It's not like we shut off the run. It's not like we go do marathon training and just, completely shut off the bike and then try to get back on the bike. That there's a good blend of what we prioritize across the year, but still doing enough homework that you can maintain doing multiple events across the year.
100%. Like I really think about the ups and downs of being even a multi-sport athlete like triathletes. Like I think you just get into a rut with your training. And one of the interesting evolutions in our program was bringing in not just like creating the out season and having really high quality winter training, but the specificity block, which we have is a 6-week block we will put in the middle of people's year, depending on what they're working on. And it's a single sport focused block. So we just dial down all the other sports, even for triathletes, simply because they just get so much value out of changing their normal routine and trying something different. And so while athletes will often balk at the idea of doing something different, over the course of their year, because like, well, that's going to interfere with my other piece. What they're missing out on is that the multimodality of that training and the variety of that training actually brings far greater benefit to them, right? So we see limitations both from sort of overuse injuries, like doing the same thing for too long. To your point about riding the wave, like triathletes, they be that surfer like in like 6 inches of water who are still like pumping, trying to make that wave last. And it's like it's the beach. Like you can't go anymore. And like, just another week of this. I just want more week. It's like, but how does that relate to your goal? And they're like, no idea. But if I could just keep it going, I'm obsessed about it. Like it doesn't make sense, right? So that's one side of it, which is just too much of the same thing and just trying to make that magic feeling last, which is sort of this amount of work that has no relation to performance. And what working in these other races allow you to do is to, hey, I want to switch gears. So I'm going to keep my mental focus going. So, hey, I've got a 6-week problem to solve to turn my half Ironman fitness into a marathon performance. What does that look like? Well, that's great. Like all of a sudden I'm using the gray matter, right? It's like, how do I recover enough? What do my run legs look like? How do I change things? That allows them to solve a marathon problem. And that lesson and how they did it and the changes that they made, all of that goes into the memory banks of how I train going forward. Whereas if you just do the same thing every year, there's not a lot of learning that happens inside that space. It becomes really, really hyper specific, where athletes will say, as we've seen over time, right? So like, oh, I'm going from doing an Ironman at Lake Placid to now I'm doing the Ironman in Arizona. So there's, I don't know, 5,000 less feet of climbing. So clearly my bike fit, I can change my hip angle by 6 degrees. I think I can shorten my stem by 1 centimeter. If I shave my face this time, I'm gonna reap a few more seconds. And that's the big change for the year. You're like, note to self: shave face October. That's one way to do it. But I would say even the professional athletes don't spend that much time focused on a single race. And I think there's just a real downside to it. So I, for one, am super excited for the variety. We break it up with our training plans anyway, which are very unique and diverse. And, each cohort has a different group, people doing the winter stuff, people doing mid-season stuff, people racing. So you get variety of the people you're training with. But beyond that, just also being able to say, I'm transitioning now. I got to wake up. I can't fall asleep on this train and hope that I still make it to my destination. I think that amount of autopilot carries with it enough negative consequences that the variety makes a big difference. There's a reason why, the Olympic IOC here, the IOC overall, but even here in the States, recommends that, say you take like high performing young athletes, they're like, we want these athletes playing different sports until they're 15. We don't want athletes concentrating on a single sport or single discipline before they're 15, because they want the variety. They want them to learn all sorts of different skills. And it really matters. I think right now, what it brings me to is where we are right now inside the team, like you with your following the lead of Jen Edwards with the Healthy Human Plan, right? Which is like, hey, what's the plan that just kind of keeps me well-rounded, as you called it, within striking distance? Tell me a little bit more about that. What is the within striking distance to a race mentality that you're bringing, as opposed to the 40 steps that I will take over 40 consecutive weeks that will all summed up will yield peak Matt?
So I wanted to put together a training block for myself or for other athletes that would, what I said, keep me in striking distance of getting race ready. Right. So it'd give me some baseline run fitness that I'm happy with, where I could, for me, that's pretty much running for like an hour to, an hour and 15 minutes, hour and 20. Like I basically can have a long run. Like I can do a long run. I can do a long bike. And I have, decent sustained power on the bike. And feel good while I'm running. Right. So running is not a chore. When I became purely a mountain biker, running became a chore again. And I'm a runner. And I was like, man, that was no bueno. And like, going for some of those runs, I'm like, man, this 20-minute run is no bueno after not running for a long time. It's just like, I could ride my bike forever, but
make the pain stop. You're like, oh, it's been 7.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, So anyways, just dialing back the intensity so that I have an intense run day, one intense run day, one intense bike day, a long run, a long bike. Mm-hmm. It's balanced enough that like once I have the fitness to where I want it, that I can, I'm like, all right, now I can train for a half marathon, or I could train for a half Ironman, or I could train for another bike race if I wanted to. I have enough diversity in my training that puts me within striking distance of like, 12 weeks of race prep can get me, the specificity I need to do well in that, to do well and to enjoy racing that race. I guess I'll say it that way, to enjoy my experience of racing that,
Right. Agreed. And I just think that there's something about that ability to create a season, right, that really makes a difference. And so like a race is a story you tell yourself for a certain time. So the problem we had back in the original days in rotation was people would sign up for a race. They'd sign up for Coeur d'Alene next year, and they would start training the moment they signed up. They're like, this is my story. And I'm like, it's not your story. Like you just had an idea. Like we have a long time to go before we crack open the book and start busting through these chapters. You have to restrain yourself, right? I think what we see now is the almost like the edification of that triathlon mindset, where people who are inside that space are just on repeat of what they're doing. There's some assurance or like self-awareness of like, oh, every November I do this, or every January I do this piece. Like when you get to that mindset, you are like for better or for worse, you have to understand, like, while there's maybe some pros to like being able to get things working, you're also sacrificing some opportunity on the other side of the equation. If you always go to the gym on Tuesdays and you always do legs on Tuesday and you always do the same machines in the same order, even if the weight changes, your body, you just stop adapting. And I think one of the things that we're noticing over time as our athletes evolve is that mentally they're craving some of this adventure. And I'm quite frankly grateful for the people who are picking different races, doing crazy long gravel races, like whatever Robin Sarner's up to these days, who knows, doing stage races in Europe. Didn't even know mountain bike stage races were a thing. Picking unique areas like Al doing the camp in Montana is a fantastic one. And just trying different stuff. Like, Carl was telling me they're going to go do an epic, like another 50K ultra run with him and Maurice and maybe Rob down in the Florida area in the spring. And I think all of that variety is just fantastic for learning and keeping you engaged as an athlete. Like, so be multi-dimensional for sure. I think that's the way to go. All right. Excellent. I feel like we've dropped some knowledge on people. So folks, if you kind of talk to your significant other about like this big race you want to do, if you need a letter from me, either one of us will write it, but you definitely should be doing 2 or 3 other races that are very different at different times of the year that nobody was expecting. The truth is, I will put one more thing in there. It doesn't just have to be like an event. Like, you can sign up for an event, but you can also just make something cool happen too. Like, it doesn't have to be that you're signing up for a trail race. You could manufacture your own. Like, it's because these are different events and different distances. It's not necessarily something you're awesome at, but it's just something you're going to do. So just give yourself that personal challenge. I've also noticed as athletes, move down the experience spectrum, they can just do their own stuff. I mean, look at Withrow, right? Like, he signed up for Margie Gessick this year, which is legit. Don't get me wrong. That's a crazy ass race and he's going to be feeling it for sure. I can't wait to hear his version of events. But at the same time, I know at least 2 times this year, that dude rode from like 6 a.m. until 7 p.m. in his neighborhood. Like, he just rode like 13 hours around his neighborhood, like rode every trail. Like, that was his jam. He was doing it already. Like, he just had found a way to do it. Like, took a day off from work and was like, I'm going to go do this madness. And I think there's something to be said for that. So don't feel like you got to sign up for a race, but you can definitely make some epic happen. So look forward to hearing from everybody what it is. All right. On to the long awaited last segment of our end of holiday year episode. Where I'm pitching that we do the worst gift we've ever given story and the worst gift we've ever gotten story. So I don't know. Have you decided? You were sort of initially out. Are you still out? It's okay if you're out.
I am out. Like, I don't have a great memory for those things. I don't know, either I've blocked them out or I've ignored the fact that people didn't like the pair of socks that I gave them, or it went over like a wah, 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 but.
Matt chooses psychological safety. That's okay.
Yeah,
don't worry.
I don't. Yeah, I just
violence. I choose violence today.
Yeah, we got in the mode so recently where like people are like, well, what do you want? And like, then you end up buying it for yourself, and then people are like, okay, I got you the thing, and then like I'm like, all right, well, I'm out. Like, that's like, I don't know. Anyway, yeah. So,
yes, totally. Yeah, I think
it became less creative gift buying or whatever. We started taking a less risky gift giving or whatever.
Well, that's the best part about gifts with friends, because you can just give them something that's just like totally random, and then it does, like, they didn't ask for it, so you're like, oh well, that's why I got you this thing, because you didn't tell me you didn't want it.
I thought you'd love it. Oh.
Yeah, it's perfect for you, for your face, because you're gonna fix that. Oh, did I just say that? Like, I'm so sorry.
All right, so. You brought it up. So what was the topics are? What was the worst gift that you received and the worst gift that you gave? Was it that?
Yes,
so you must have a couple winners here. You're the creative guy, so you would definitely come up with some good ones, I'm sure.
Well, I've got 1 or 2. So the worst gift I ever gave was the fault of the team. Like, I blame all of you listening. It was your fault. I'm super mad. We've never talked about it, but the next time I see you, we will. We were all talking about Zwift, and we were trying to figure out how we could get Zwift to update our body weight. So I was like, oh, I need to get a scale that's going to allow me to like hop on the scale, but like through Bluetooth, it's going to connect to Zwift and it will update my body weight in the game. That way I don't have to go in the game and change the thing. It's just like, get on the scale. It tells, like, through some automation, you know me, it'll gears will turn, steam will come out of a factory somewhere, and it will update Zwift, and then I'm good. I don't have to like look at the number, remember the number, go to Zwift, log in, change the number, whatever. It's automatically happen. So I was like, what do we do this? And so I was asking people about scales and these Bluetooth scales, and people, innocent, super nice people like Derek saying, she's like, well, you should try this scale. Like this one is like Bluetooth enabled and it does this thing or the whatever thing. So I was trying to figure out a way that I could justify buying this like $250 scale. Where I was like, it's just freaking scale, right? It doesn't go anywhere. It doesn't have wheels. Like can't go fast on it. Like it's just a thing you stand on. So what's the story here? And then it had all these other cool features like water weight and like body composition if you got on it barefoot or whatever. So I convinced him, this is how badly I wanted this thing, that I walked right into this trap that I laid for myself that I didn't even see coming, which is like I convinced myself that my wife, who was also trying to work on her body composition, I was like, this would be great. Like she could actually benefit from this scale as well. And then I could also, so it'd be like a net win-win. Like she's happy because now she gets to sort of measure the thing. And I'm happy because I'm also simultaneously updating Zwift. So I told myself this whole story. I bought this scale. And we do gifts at my in-laws. So that's the gift. Like the gift, we each have like one gift that we don't know what we got the other one. So get the gift out, do the thing. Like she unwraps it. She's like, what is this? I'm like, because it kind of looked a little space agey. It was hard to tell, whatever it was. And I was like, oh, it's a scale. She's like, what? I was like, yeah, I got this Bluetooth scale. Like it tells you all these things. She's like, I don't want to know. I don't want to know what the numbers are. And I definitely was not cool that she thought I was thinking that she needed a scale, but she was saying I solved the problem that she did not want me to solve. And I also created a massive problem for myself as well. So I spent a fair amount of time digging out of that one. So that is definitely, without a doubt,
that is definitely one that you bear trapped yourself there. That was awesome.
Oh, I totally did. I built the bear trap. I laid it out. I sat in it and then I triggered it. Like literally anyone else would be like, what is this person doing? Like, what is happening? But no, not me.
We should have talked about that before you did that. That's true. We probably could have.
If I had only mentioned anyone, any friend would have stopped me. Like a person on the street, a pedestrian would have stopped me, being like, "That's a bad idea. I don't know who you are, but don't do that." So note to self, like, don't give that gift. So don't worry, anybody out there who I really care about who's listening to this podcast, you're not getting a scale from me. In any way, shape, or form. All right. So
what'd you get? That was
the worst gift I've ever gotten, I think, was from my mother-in-law. And it was a stocking stuffer. And so, big stockings on the mantle, old school New England, just full of stuff, like barely hanging on the mantle. So you're just going through there like, oh, I got like some chocolates, like, yeah, I got a pair of socks or whatever's inside the thing, all the little trash keys. I put my hand inside there and it's like sharp. I'm like, ow, and I kind of cut my finger trying to reach in and get this thing. And I was like, son of a gun. Like, I'm like, this must be some plastic thing. Like, I don't know what it is. Like I reach in and like pull it out. And it's this black plastic thing. It's shaped like almost like a gun, but not really, short. On the back side, it comes to a fine point of metal, and on the front, like there's like a slot that like has this blade inside of it that you could slide something into, And so I'm looking at this thing like, what the hell is this thing? Like that cut me. Like, so now I'm like, great, it's metal. I'm like, I'm bleeding metal. That is great. But I'm also like, what is this thing? And my mother-in-law was like, oh, I got one for each of you. It's so Maura's like, note to self, I won't stick my hand in my stocking aggressively like Patrick. It has the slot that you can put your seatbelt in, slide the seatbelt in there to cut your seatbelt, and then the metal part on the other side that you can break your window so you can climb out of it in the event that you drive your car into a body of water.
She was potentially saving your life. Oh my gosh.
No way. Come on. Like, there are no testimonials. No one is on these websites being like, yes, this tool saved my life, because I remembered that I kept it in my car somewhere and like pulled it out and like, like it's like in the glove box. Like, where is this thing going to be? It's in the back of my, it can't sit in the door. It's too many things have to go in the door that won't save my life. So to me, I was
the
like,
emergency seatbelt cutter. I love it. You guys all got emergency seatbelt cutters. So when your car flips over and you're still in your seatbelts, everybody can get out their own Seatbelt cutter.
Seatbelt cutters. Everyone has their own personalized one. I'll be like, save your own life, honey. Use yours. I've got mine. Ha! Like I'm going out this window. Maybe they're like little kid-sized ones. Yeah, it was one of those things where I was like, now of course I carry that thing everywhere. Like if she gets in the car, we'll go like say we all carpool to go out to dinner. She'll be like, hey, do you still have that thing that I gave you? Like, I'm like, oh my God, how do you remember? How do you remember you gave me that thing? Maybe because I made such a big stink about it and I was also bleeding. So I would file that under the worst gift I've ever gotten. I've never used it.
Good one.
It's a gift. It's like a gift you give someone that's like, hey, in case you're ever attacked by a bear, here's the spray you use. And you're like, great, but I'm intending to never use this gift. Like, so maybe
in New York City.
Yeah, maybe we make
there
something.
There are no bears by me.
Because we make something, who knows what it is, and we'll be like, this is the thing that you would use if you're abducted by terrorists in your hometown. Here in America, terrorists come and grab you, use this thing. Like, here it is. I bought it for you. We can just sell these little widgets that no one is ever going to use because terrorists are not coming for people inside their town. Like, well, thank God I have one of these things. I'll be super safe when the terrorists. It's like a gift that is designed to never be used. Like, if you're not stupid, you'll never use this. That was basically my mother-in-law. I was like, does she think I'm about to drive into some lake? Like, how often have I driven into a lake? I don't understand. How many people do I know who have driven in a lake? None. How many people do you know who have driven into a body of water?
I don't, I guess I would drive into a body of water if I had one of those. I guess I could do that, but I don't know. But that's a good one.
I'm just saying, I was like the idea that I've given you something that you would only use if you've super messed up and that you probably wouldn't want to tell anyone about anyway, right? Like if you had to use the thing, you would be like, I'm not going to tell someone I had to use the thing.
I flipped my car over and needed to cut my seatbelt to get out. Yeah.
Thank goodness for my mother-in-law saving me with that. Cut my own seatbelt out before I, died. And when I was an idiot and drove into this body of water, like you'd make up some other story like, oh, a deer ran out in front of my car, and I had to dodge the young. So I went over the rail and into the water. And then meanwhile, I'm like looking for my iPhone on the floor of the car or something like that, not paying attention. Yeah, so those go under worst gift I ever gave and worst gift I ever got. For those of you who are listening, especially those of you on the team, would love to hear from you. We'll take a little pulse check here on listening to DudeGuy. And if you think about it, I'd love to hear from you because Endurance Nation is a safe place for talking about things outside of Endurance Nation. Tell us the worst gift you ever gave and the worst gift you ever got. I bet we've got some good ones. We've got some pretty classy people on the team. I'm sure there'll be some pretty epic ones for sure. Awesome. Hey, this is great. Little year-end wrap, little serious stuff, but good to get back on track. We got to keep this rolling into the new year for sure. I'm excited about it. I think DudeGuy was a great addition, and I hope to continue to get some great feedback from the team as well. So even my dogs like it. Like, look at that. It's incredible. It's going to be awesome. All right. So I guess for the DudeGuy audience out there, we will see you next year. And we look forward to hearing about all of your other events that you've signed up for. And you don't have to tell us if you told anyone else about them. That's fine. Just tell us about them so we can plan your season. All right, Matt. Thanks so much for your time.
Sounds good.
All right. I'll see you.
Happy New Year.
Yes. See ya. Happy.
Happy.
Endurance Nation.
Hey, podcast fans. I know you love the podcast because here you are, you're listening to it and you're still listening to me talk right now. Did you know you can get content just like this in your inbox once a month? We send out a great newsletter. We call it, guess what? The Unfair Advantage. That's right. It's our information to you, something that separates you from the competition. If they're not here, then they don't know. But if you are here, then now you do. Zero excuses. If you go check us out online at endurancenation.us/newsletter, it's your opportunity to enter your email address, sign up for these updates. They come once a month, sometimes twice a month, depending on my race schedule. And it's your chance to get insider information that's going to help you become a better, smarter athlete. Don't miss out on this chance to get ahead of the competition. It doesn't cost you any money, and it's not a ton of work. It's just your email address. That's endurancenation.us/newsletter.
For more information about Endurance Nation, visit us online at endurancenation.us. The provided music is from the Podshow Podsafe Music Network. Check it out at music.podshow.com.